Is Idaho's abortion ban going to be overturned? A group is 70% of the way there. This week, an Idaho woman helps deck the halls of the White House for Christmas. We look at the impact of Idaho's homeless ban, and a tragic crash takes a 7-year-old's life on I-84 just before Thanksgiving. This is the Yocal Idaho Midweek Report, where we give you an overview of the news you need to know in Idaho for the last week. Did you hear about the Boise Pickleball lawsuit that happened? You may or may not have, of the court and different things that went on there. Also about Idaho's largest Christmas light display. If not, stick with us to learn more about both of those stories. Also, if my eye looks a little bit weird this week, it is not because I got punched or something like that. It is just some seasonal issues and just enjoying campfires way too much. To get full coverage on these important stories and much more, you can go to our website. And to ensure you're the most informed Idahoan in the room, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get into the episode. A group is working to overturn our state's abortion protections, announced that they've gathered more than 50,000 signatures. That puts them about 70% of the way towards their goal of roughly 71,000 verified signatures needed to place this measure on the November 2026 ballot. Crazy to think when we were all talking about this, I thought, oh, that's a far way off, but, time keeps moving. As for the group behind it, Idahoans United for Women and Families calls this proposal the, quote, Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act, end quote. If we, the Idaho voters, approve it, the initiative would end our current law that protects unborn children. Right now, for context and what the law does, doctors can only perform abortions in cases of rape and incest or when the mother's life is threatened. So there are some cases, but beyond that, it is heavily restricted. As for the deadline on this group has until April 30th of 2026 to collect signatures across at least 18 of our 35 legislative districts. They've set an internal goal of 1,000 signatures to ensure they have enough valid ones to qualify, because past initiatives in the past have had their signatures audited and had maybe issues meeting the threshold they need. This ballot initiative uses a power outlined, as you may or may not know, in our state's constitution that allows citizens to propose policies directly to voters. If it qualifies and passes with a simple majority, it would become law. And speaking about bans and their impact, since July, Idaho's major cities have had to enforce a new state law that bans camping on public property, something that our neighbor Oregon does not do. The result of a recent in-depth report from the Boise Dev reveals that both progress and challenges with it have come across Boise, Meridian, and Nampa. Digging into those results, the Boise Police Department reports more calls for service and have issued more tickets since the ban took effect. Officials now face a sticky balance between enforcing the law while connecting people to resources. Business owners in the area, like Shoreline neighborhood, say the difference is dramatic. Streets that were once lined with RVs and makeshift camps have been cleared almost overnight. Workers and consumers can now walk safely through neighborhoods without feeling uneasy as they would have just months ago. Now, obviously, with all them disappearing, the question then becomes is, where did they go? Well, they didn't just vanish, they moved into shelters. Corpus Common, our only day shelter, now serves 150 lunches daily, double of what they served before. Interfaith Sanctuary completed 102 new intakes in July of 2025 compared to just 10 the previous July, so big jump there. These shelters are rushing to expand capacity as winter is approaching, or has already for many of us here in the state. And that kind of brings us to the first half. You may have heard what I was saying and thought that's really bad, that's really sad, or that's a really good thing. We would say that this law pushes people towards help rather than allowing them to remain on the streets, which is a good thing. We want them to get help. We want them to get homes. We don't, I think all of us would agree, we don't want homeless to be homeless. While this may seem harsh though, it actually shows love by refusing to accept homelessness as normal. When we let people camp indefinitely, we abandon them to danger, addiction, and isolation, something that shouldn't do to anyone. These laws say that we care enough to intervene. In conclusion, churches and nonprofits now have a clear call to action. As shelters expand, they need our support, not just financially, but through volunteers who can address the deeper needs that these folks face. The law creates urgency, and that urgency can drive real solutions if we respond with both truth and compassion. Have you heard about either of these stories? Or do you not want to miss out about learning more about Idaho? If so, make sure to subscribe or follow us so you don't miss any of our future content. And speaking of sad things that really pull at your heart, before Thanksgiving, families across Idaho traveled over I-84 to gather with loved ones, one of the two freeway systems we have here in the state. But on Tuesday, November 25th, one family's journey ended in heartbreak when a GMC Sierra rear-ended a box truck car near milepost 39 in Canyon County. A 7-year-old from Meridian died at the scene from blunt force injuries. Graham's father, the boy's name, was driving with Graham and his two younger brothers when the crash happened just after 3 p.m. For many of us here in the valley that were driving around at that time, it really locked down the freeway, so you might remember it from that if you live in the Treasure Valley. As for his siblings and his grandfather, they both went to the hospital and survived. Idaho State Police are still investigating and are asking anyone who witnessed the crash or have video to contact dispatch at 208-846-7500. Friends described Graham as a boy with one of the biggest hearts. Someone who stood up for classmates who struggled and protected his younger brothers. His mother, Ashley, works 3 jobs while finishing nursing school and was set to graduate next month. The Valley has definitely rallied behind her with support through verified GoFundMe pages to cover hospital bills and funeral costs. From local Yocal, we send our prayers. Idaho Power just released plans that look dramatically different from what the company promised a few months ago, or years for that matter. If you may remember, the utility pledged to reach about, 100% clean energy back by about 2045? Well, the goal of that still exists on paper, but the path to get there has changed. The 2025 plan shows that Idaho Power will convert coal plants, which we actually have a couple of those, they're a little rare in this state, to burn natural gas by next year, and build 2 brand new gas plants in 2029 and 2030. Early plans call for phasing out natural gas entirely, or converting those plants to burn hydrogen, a new one there. Now with all of that, there is no plan to scale back gas generation at all. As for, you might be asking the obvious question, why the shift? Well, Idaho Power faces unprecedented growth. 8 to 9% every year for the past 5 years. That growth we're having needs more power. That comes out to being about a 45% spike in demand over 20 years, driven by new homes, businesses, and massive data centers moving into our state. Think of the Micron project we've talked about. The utilities say it needs reliable power that doesn't depend on whether the sun shines or wind blows. But here's where things get a little bit interesting, and we'll see how they develop into the future like we've seen them adjusting these plans. While Idaho Power scrambles to meet demand with natural gas, our state is beginning to bet big on nuclear energy as a real solution. Governor Little created the Idaho Advanced Nuclear Energy Task Force, which replaces the old Line Commission and will meet for the first time in February. The Trump administration is backing Idaho's nuclear push with executive orders and federal support. Idaho National Laboratory is already building its first new reactor in 50 years, and private companies are racing to develop small modular reactors at INEL's site. With all this, unlike wind and solar, nuclear provides steady, reliable power without weather dependence, and it could finally deliver on the promise of truly green, truly in that sense of green, and affordable energy for generations to come. Do you like the sound of that, of affordable, clean, and reliable energy? I know it's hard to believe. If so, hit the like button, and also do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe/follow button. It helps us stay connected with you and reach more folks who love Idaho just like yourself. And speaking of the Trump admin, and as we swing into December here, While most of us were carving turkey and thanking the Lord for our blessings last week, Aggie Olszewski from Meridian packed her bags for Washington, D.C. She joined a team of volunteers who transformed the White House for Christmas, getting it ready for the Trump administration's first holiday season back. Olszewski didn't stumble into this opportunity, though. She applied for a decade, filling out lengthy questionnaires each year that detailed how she decorates. Her persistence paid off when the First Lady Melania Trump's team selected her as one of about 150 volunteers nationwide. She's likely the only Idahoan, however, on this year's team, which makes us proud. For a full week, Olszewski worked 10-hour days, tying ribbons, arranging glitter, and decking everything from the Oval Office to the grand corridors. The unveiled theme, which is "Home is where the heart is," end quote, features traditional red and green decor with over 10,000 butterflies. Interesting, I didn't think of those for Christmas, but oh well. And about 125 pounds of gingerbread house. For someone who keeps 6 Christmas trees in her own home year-round, this is the ultimate bucket list item. She returned home this week, bringing her White House experience back to our state. And speaking of things back here in the state that are a little bit contentious, pickleball has become one of the fastest growing sports in America. Just look at every new park being built. And Idaho ranks 5th in the nation for pickleball venues. But if you remember, the sport hit a snag in Boise earlier this year. For context on that, if you're not familiar, back in September, the city closed pickleball courts at Willow Lane and Manitou Park after neighbors won a noise lawsuit. The city settled for $7,000 and converted those courts back to tennis-only facilities. Neighbors complained that the constant popping sound from paddle striking disrupted their homes even on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Now, Boise Parks and Recreation wants to hear from you, the locals. They've launched a survey that runs through December 31st to gather input on where the city should build new pickleball courts and how to balance the sport's growing demand with neighborhood concerns. The survey feeds into a 5-year management plan aimed at expanding pickleball and dual-use tennis facilities across the city. Park Director Sarah Arkell says the city knows more courts are needed, but wants to plan thoughtfully to balance tennis demand, park uses, and how courts affect neighbors. If you play pickleball or have thoughts about where the courts should go, you can take the survey on the city's website through the end of this month. If you are a pickleball player, or for any of those stories we've talked about, especially our lead one about the abortion initiative, please don't hesitate to share this episode. Your shares help us keep you and others informed about what's happening in Idaho. And coming into the home stretch here, do you remember when we covered the proposal to change the international visitor cost for national parks? You may or may not, it was a little bit back. The Department of the Interior announced this week that it is happening. Starting January 1st, foreign visitors will pay $250 for an annual park pass, while we, the locals, continue to pay $80. The 11 most popular parks, including Yellowstone, which so many of us visit and enjoy, will charge international tourists an extra $100 per person on top of the regular entry fee. This applies to all federal recreation sites, including Craters of the Moon right here in our state. The Interior Department expects this will generate significant revenue to maintain our parks and address overdue repairs. For example of how that will play out, we'll go back to Yellowstone. It alone could see an additional $55 million annually. Other countries already do this, so we're not, kind of off the fray as well. Ecuador charges foreigners $200 to visit the Galapagos Islands, while citizens only pay $30. In conclusion, as Americans and Idahoans who already support these parks through our taxes, we'll keep affordable access while international visitors contribute to preserving these national treasures. And speaking of treasures, a memory is definitely a valuable one, and you'll be able to make plenty this December, as one of our state's brightest Christmas traditions has officially opened. Winter Garden Aglow at the Idaho Botanical Garden now is lit up with 33 acres, with more than 850,000 hand-strung lights. This marks the event's 29th year, and it remains one of the garden's largest fundraisers. Aaron Anderson, the garden's executive director, says crews began hanging lights back in September 21st and didn't stop until opening day. Man, that is some serious dedication. The display features returning favorites like the miniature trains, hot cocoa, and cookies. Plus, new additions this year include a silent disco and a gumdrop grove. I sense some little girls that will be very happy. Anderson emphasized that the visitors can connect with nature during winter while building family traditions. The event runs through New Year's Eve, and guests must buy a time entry ticket online in advance. Kind of important element, you just can't show up. They also wanted people to know that the parking looks different this year because of the ongoing expansion project at the garden, so you might want to check ahead or call them. This nonprofit serves our state year-round through educational programs and conservation efforts. And the Winter Gardens Aglow helps fund all that wonderful work. And speaking of wonderful work, I have no doubt you have some to get to, and I do as well. Thank you for listening to the entire report. I sincerely hope you found it enjoyable and valuable. If you like the Midweek Report, make sure to check out our other content on our website, which is linked below or on our page. Also, if we missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to us via email, on Twitter by tweeting us at local Yocal Idaho. With the small team we have, we're not able to cover everything, but we do our best to cover the most interesting and important stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now. I wish you a fantastic rest of your week, Godspeed, and Merry Christmas.